Kip, what's going on, man? Thanks for joining me on another Ask Me Anything.
It's good. It'll be fun. You mentioned this earlier. It'll be fun to shake things up and get some questions from your Instagram account. I didn't realize how many. Do you normally get that many questions when you do posts?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
That's-
it's quite a bit. Yeah, I've only done those Ask Me Anything type things on Instagram a couple of times, and both of them, over like 200 comments. So it gets a little insane over there at times, which is
yeah,
good. I
totally.
like it. It's nice that people are engaged, and I try to get to as many questions as I can. But yeah, I can't get to them all. So I thought this would be a great place to do it.
Yeah, and what's great also is it removes the pressure from me to pronounce names correctly because these aren't even names. They're like
Oh, that's true. I didn't
I
even
don't
think
even
about
know.
that.
I don't even
Yes.
know how to. Ezra Kigiji,
Well, you already,
whatever
yeah,
that is.
you already messed up right there, like on the first one, because I'm sure that's not what it is.
No, but I am Danny. I am Danny Boy. Or maybe I have to spell these. I don't even know. Or do we just skip the names altogether? Or I'll give it a good run.
It's like a license plate where you're trying to like piece together a custom license plate, what it says, and it can say 1,000 different things depending on where you place the brakes. Like some are right, some are inappropriate. So you just
Yeah.
make up your own, man. Just roll with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it.
All right, brother.
So
Well, let's
no
get into it
pressure on
then.
the names.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah. So we've alluded to this already. These questions will be fielding from Ryan Mickler's Instagram account. To follow Ryan there, it's at Ryan Mickler. That's Michler.
Correct.
I'm assuming I don't need to spell Ryan for you guys since we're a little bit more educated crowd that listens to this podcast.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. We'll determine that based on the questions that we answer today.
Sounds good. All right. So our first question, here we go. Pop M. Chris, how goes the hunt to have three major podcasters on and three major podcasts to be on?
It's going good. Every day I send out invites and messages, and I'm reaching out and trying to network and communicate with other people, which is something I do fairly well at, asking if people will make connections. So I've got probably, I would say, like 8 or 9 high caliber podcast guest requests at this point, and another 3 to 5 where I've requested to go on other shows. Sometimes it takes a while, sometimes I get a no or a no response. And so I try to flank them and work a different angle and make a connection and ask somebody else to introduce me. So it just takes time. We've got like Jordan Peterson is in queue, not in queue, but in that lineup. Dan Crenshaw, somebody I reached out to. Ross Edgley is another individual I just reached out to. Mark Manson, another individual I reached out to. Mike Rowe has turned me down 4 or 5 times, but that won't deter me. So welcome to the life of a podcaster.
Yeah.
I don't take any of that personal. Like, I get it. People reach out to me all the time to be on their podcast, and I say yes to about 80% of them, and 20% for whatever reason, I'm busy or maybe my message I don't feel like will resonate with their audience, and so I turn those down. But yeah, I don't take it personally. It's just people are busy and have to make choices on what podcast to join and which ones not to.
Totally. Well, and I don't know about you, but I have people reach out to me all the time and I overlook it, and it's not even intentional or it's not intended to be a no. It's just busy or misunderstood who the individual was or something else. I think a perfect example of that is, as you know, I reached out to JP Donnell and I'm texting him like, hey, JP, let's meet tomorrow. And he like, oh, yeah, let's meet. And then it goes dark. And then again, I'm like, so are we going to meet or what's going on? And then, oh yeah. And then he goes dark. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this guy's like blowing me off. And then eventually he's like, dude, I had your number mixed up with someone else's number. I thought it was like some spamming person. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but the average person probably would have already like, hey, run some story about how this guy doesn't care and whatever. And I would have stopped reaching out because I assumed that he was blowing me off when reality was just a misunderstanding. So,
well, it's funny because I used to make up those stories and they always went negative. Like, oh, he's blowing me off. He doesn't care about what we're doing. And it always went negative. And then somewhere along the way it clicked that I'm lying, right? I'm making up a story with faulty assumptions. So if I'm going to make up a story, like, why not just make a positive one?
yeah.
Like, he really wants to be on the podcast. He just lost my number. Like that could be just as true as
That's true.
he hates me as a human being.
Yeah.
So like, if you're going to make up a story, just make up one that serves you, not one that hinders you.
Yeah. I love that. That's a really good point. That's great. All right. Come back, Graybeard. Most manly president from each century.
From each century.
I know. I read this question. I thought we should probably Google the list of all
I
the
would say
presidents.
George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Theodore Roosevelt.
There you go. There's the list.
Easy.
All right.
Give me a hard one.
Chris Edge official. Tips on creating a tribe while under self-isolation and travel restriction protocols.
I mean, we're doing it here. You know, you've got Zoom and you've got Facebook groups and you've got Google Hangouts and all kinds of chat options and digital technology. So what I would do, especially if you're trying to build a tribe with other men, is to rally around some sort of common purpose, or even better in a lot of cases is a common enemy. And that enemy might be the spare tire that's around your belly. It might be, I don't know, a sports team that you guys all despise, but you really like this other team better. And so you talk about that. I don't know. Or whatever, you know, maybe there's a physical challenge or reading books or whatever, but it needs to be centered around having some sort of challenge built into it and a reason to actually meet. Because in my experience, dudes they don't want to hang out and chat about their feelings or whatever. Yeah. Now you can work some of that in, and you probably ought to do that, but it has to be centered around something more meaningful and significant than, hey, let's discuss how we feel about the coronavirus. Like, nobody wants to do that. Men don't want to do that. Women maybe more so generally, but men certainly don't. This is why churches have such a difficult time, because we're supposed to sit around and like hold each other's hands and like talk about our feelings and sing Kumbaya. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. So you have to get some element of challenge, some element of even confrontation, not in a negative way, but in a healthy way.
Yeah.
And then some element of struggle and pain, maybe even a little bit, to overcome and to work together and to work through. I think that's a much more valuable way to do it for men. So yeah, just use some digital technology, get some guys together and just say, hey, we're going to meet. Here's another thing, another tip I'd give you is just pick a time and then schedule it and make that work. Like, don't ask, hey, when do you guys want to hang out? And like, what works best for you guys? Like, that's a passive way of doing it, and it's not going to work because there isn't one time that works great for everybody, and everybody's kind of dancing around hoping somebody else will finally take charge. You need to take charge. And then realize that if you say, okay, well, we're going to meet every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, and here's the link. Realize that the first time you do it, it might be you by yourself or you and one other guy. But if you maintain consistency, that's very, very important. Whether you're trying to start a tribe for a business endeavor, like maybe we're doing here with Order of Man, or just personal reasons, you have to maintain consistency. An example of that is years ago, me and a neighbor of mine wanted to play basketball like on Tuesday or Wednesday night at the church. And so him and I went. We'd have like 2 guys. Sometimes we'd have 4 guys show up. And it was like that for weeks, 5 or 6 weeks. And then all of a sudden we had 6 guys show up and 8 guys show up. And then before we ended up shutting it down and switching nights, we'd have like 25 dudes show up consistently. So like nobody could play. So we actually left. They kept doing it, I think, for a while. And we started another one. But it takes that level of consistency to be able to build it up, because people need to know you're serious. And it's not that they don't trust you individually. They just don't trust people in general, because most people fall short of what it is they say they want to do.
And so the trust comes into play because they think it's going to die out anyway. So why?
Like, what a waste of time. And like, who wants to be part of an organization or a group while they're working the kinks out?
Yeah.
Nobody does. They want to be part of a winning organization that has a proven track record of success. So you actually need to prove that. And, you know, you're going to have early adopters and you're going to have friends who come. But in order to grow it to the level that you're wanting to, it just takes just a diehard consistency towards doing that thing and letting it ride.
Yeah. Cool. All right. GWU wrestling. Favorite nonfiction fiction.
Wait, favorite what?
I'm assuming a book or well, maybe a movie.
Wait, what did he? Go ahead.
Favorite nonfiction or fiction?
Oh, I just
Like
thought you said favorite nonfiction fiction. I'm like, I don't know what that
did,
is.
but I didn't pause.
Oh, okay. I'm like, what is a nonfiction fiction? Favorite nonfiction. Man, there's so many. Wild at Heart sticks out. Like that's something really, really good. That was life altering for me. Wild at Heart by John Eldridge. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Yeah.
Sovereignty by Ryan Michler. That one might be a little biased. As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. Atomic Habits by James Clear. I don't know. Just go through the podcast. There's so many, but there's 5. Fiction. Well, I'm reading Savage Son by Jack Carr right now. My podcast with him comes out next week. So that's that series. If you aren't reading the James Reese series, like read it. It's all by Jack Carr. Terminalist, True Believer, and then this 3rd installment, which is Savage Son. I'm also reading The Road by Cormac McCarthy. I couldn't think of his name. That's probably not a great one to read right now because it's about this like apocalypse and this dad's trying to survive with his son. So like I don't know that that's like the best read right now, but it's actually very, very fascinating. That's called The Road. I think I said that. I don't read a whole lot of fiction, but those are a couple.
The book that we're reading was the Too Soon Old, Too Late Smart.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good book. I don't know why, but it's like I am so drawn to that book. I'm already buying like the hard copy because the audio. I'm like, and I'm gonna listen to audio probably a handful of times, and it's really insightful.
Yeah, there is so many great books out there. It's hard to like just pick a couple, but yeah, just there's a lot of them.
All right, Caesar Muir. What is
messed that one up?
I know. What is a virtue that a man needs to possess? Pronouncing names.
Yes. Man, there's a lot. Strength, fortitude, grit, resiliency, resolve.
Talking about books, Sovereignty has a good explanation of all of those.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think like his an ability to communicate effectively. That's actually one that a lot of people overlook. He needs to be a great communicator. If you're going to lead, you got to be able to communicate effectively.
Yeah.
Patience is something a lot of people overlook. You know, there's a lot of things that don't happen the way that you would like them to happen or on your timeline. Certainly true for me. So just exercising what Andy Frisella would call, I think he calls it aggressive patience, where you're being patient, but you're still working towards the thing. It's not idle. It's not passive. It's still active and engaged, but you're being patient in the result that it will produce. Man, there's just so many virtues that you need to possess. But I think those are the ones that come to the top of my mind. Fortitude. Generally, when you think of men, you think of fortitude, grit, strength, resilience. Those are what we would consider masculine virtues. Not exclusive to men, but masculine virtues. And then you have the feminine virtues. Not to diminish them by any means, but love, kindness, empathy, nurturing. Those are the feminine virtues, which I think men ought to possess to some degree as well. You know, we can exhibit those characteristics and not be thought of as a woman or less manly. I think we should possess all of those things.
Okay. Kyle Renard, with the tricky dynamics of a nuclear family, how would you suggest that a 20-something son on his own journey towards being a man encourage older males in his family to pursue the same things in their lives?
Why should they pursue the same things? I mean, you're 20 years old. They're older than you. I don't know if this is your father or your siblings or your mother. I don't know, but they shouldn't necessarily follow the same things that you're following. Now, there's some general things like being a good human being, trying to make yourself more capable, developing a new skill set, things that we would generally consider worthwhile objectives, regardless of the specificity of your goals and objectives. But, you know, lead by example. Connect the dots, show them how what you are doing is actually yielding and producing the desired result for you and how it might produce the result for them. Be empathetic, you know, just listen to them. What is it that they're trying to accomplish? And if you listen, they're probably going to be more likely to listen to you and to be open and receptive to what it is that you might have to share. But generally, people flock to those who are successful, and they don't necessarily flock to those who aren't. So if you're producing some metric of success, it's been my experience that people will flock to you and try to figure out how you're producing that result in your life. And that's a great opportunity for you to shine. It's a great opportunity for you to educate and lead and motivate and inspire. But a lot of the times they'll come to you when you exude that level of confidence that has been earned. I've said this before in past podcasts and on social media that I had a mentor. One of my original mentors said to me, Ryan, you'll be successful when you learn to light yourself on fire and allow others to watch you burn. I was like, what in the world does that mean? But I know now. It's like, light yourself on fire. Like, find something that's driving you, that's motivating you, that you're passionate and excited about it, and let other people experience it and be influenced by it. The hard part, though, is that if you think about fire, obviously this is a metaphor, but if you think about it literally and metaphorically, it's painful, right? Yeah. Fire is painful. You get burned, it hurts, and you have to be able to endure that to be able to shine for other people. Same thing metaphorically, I get mocked and ridiculed, and people say some crazy and strange things and dismiss what I'm doing and everything else under the sun that you could possibly imagine. But that's the pain, right? That's the sacrifice. And that's what it's required to be an example to those who would be influenced by what it is you're doing. So lead by example and connect the dots for people.
I found peace as I get older, not caring about, not influencing. It's not necessarily that, but trying to convince people to see my point of view and being content with where I'm at and how I feel about things. I'm assuming, Ryan, that helps you be ridiculed. That allows you to do what you're doing and not be so tied up in the disapproval of the some.
Well, here's how I look at it. So a lot of people say, "Oh man, you have to develop thick skin in order to do what you do." No, you don't. You just need to be indifferent. Right? Because
be okay with people seeing it differently.
Yeah, because look, if I'm indifferent to somebody's opinion, then it doesn't hurt, and I don't need to have any sort of thick skin in order to endure it. I'm indifferent. I could care less.
Yeah.
Could not care less, I should say. Right? So, that's what I've been able to do. Like, I look at somebody's results in their life, and if they're not producing favorable results or results that I'm after, then I'm indifferent to what they have to say. They don't know me. They don't understand anything about my life. They're not producing what it is I'm after. So what does anything, good or bad, that they could have to say affect or impact me? That's why I always also try to take compliments with a grain of salt. I don't feel like you can take criticism with a grain of salt and not take compliments with a grain of salt. Like, I try not to read too deeply into compliments either, which is kind of counterintuitive. But look, if I'm not going to read deeply into criticism, then I shouldn't be able to read too deeply into compliments. Like, you can't have both. You either need to be indifferent to both of them or somewhere on the scale with both of them. But I think you really ought to take both with a grain of salt. If you start to believe that everything that somebody says good about you is right and nothing bad is right.
Something bad, when they say something bad about you, then what?
Exactly.
You throw that out now?
Now, if somebody pays me a compliment that I believe is genuine, that I actually believe about myself, then okay, yeah, thank you. And if somebody has a criticism for me and they do it respectfully and it's something that I'm aware of or something I ought to be aware of, then I can say thank you for exposing that and letting me know. I don't always handle that the best because, like us all, we have an ego, and you got to be careful of that. But yeah.
Ryan Landis, favorite novel? Is that the same book that you're mentioning earlier, or did you have a
favorite novel?
Favorite novel.
Yeah, again, like when I think of novel, I think of like fictional work, and I just don't read a whole lot of fiction. I mean, the only one I remember, even from when I was growing up, was like Old Man in the Sea, like Jack London stuff I'd read. Yeah, Choose Your Own Adventures. Yeah, Jack London stuff was always fascinating and intriguing to me. So yeah, I don't have a favorite novel, but I gave some earlier, so I think we're good there.
All right. Joshua Brood, where did this version of Restore Masculinity come from, and what was the first step you took to make this vision a reality?
It doesn't come from just one place. I'm assuming when he talks about the version of restore masculinity, I'm assuming maybe he's talking about protect, provide, preside, I think is maybe what he's alluding to, or what it means to be a man, at least my
Yeah.
interpretation of it.
Well, where did this vision to restore masculinity come from? Sorry, I may have said version.
Oh, vision of it? Okay.
Yeah, where did this vision?
So the vision for order of man, I guess, is what
Yeah,
he's asking. Okay.
yeah. Sorry.
No, it's good. Man, it wasn't like a grand epiphany. It wasn't like one day I woke up because I had this dream and the angels came and spoke to me and told me what I should be doing or anything like that. Like it was just, hey, you should start a podcast and interview men so you can learn and grow and be better because you have conversations with them. Oh,
How
and if
long into that did it come about restoring masculinity? Because I'm assuming the podcast originally was kind of like, hey, resources to help men become better men. Was there a point where it's like, whoa, to become better men, a lot of this has to do with restoring masculinity back to the way it was,
yeah,
not necessarily just helping men as a good resource.
yeah, I mean that doesn't happen again in one swift move. It just evolves and grows and expands over time. And I spend a lot of time thinking about it. It's influenced by books, like I just mentioned. One is Wild at Heart, and others. And then I read things and I see things, and there's other men that I'm influenced and inspired by. But you can't solve a problem that people don't know exists or doesn't exist. Like I think some people make up problems too, and I try not to make up problems. But I realized that if I wanted to inspire men to be motivated and educated and learn what it is we're doing, then I have to begin to identify, is there even a problem? And I saw this because I was having conversations with hundreds of men who were dealing with some very similar issues, and they generally fall into 2, 3, 4, 5 different camps. And you begin to see pretty quickly the lack of masculine role models, the dismissal and mockery of masculinity in society and the undermining of it, the negative ramifications that come when men aren't stepping up the way they ought to be stepping up. I see that so often, and I spend a lot of time in contemplation and reflection. I just pulled something up here that I was working on today, and I'm just kind of overviewing like why we're doing what we're doing and what is our mission statement. And I'll read a little bit of this to you. It's very, very rough, like, because I was just thinking about it this morning, and I do this all the time, but here it is very simply. Our mission is to enlist, train, and inspire an army of moral and capable fathers, husbands, business owners, community leaders, men. Our mission is accomplished by equipping men with the tools, resources, conversations, and accountability required to thrive on the personal and professional front. The men who band with us are committed to improving themselves so that they may more adequately be able to serve those under their care. They are well-rounded in their approach to the mantle of masculinity and focus equally on their mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health. And then just some subnotes here is believing that being a man is a calling they strive to answer, going through code of conduct. Another segment in this document I'm writing right now is why does any of this matter? The problems that we address, who exactly we serve, where we serve them, how we serve them. So these are things that I'm very, very deliberate and intentional about, that I spend a lot of time in reflection and that I'm influenced by in every way, every single day of my life. Through the books that I'm reading, I'm looking at it through the lens. I'm looking at life through the lens of the work that we do. So when I'm driving down the road and I see a billboard, it's seen through the lens of helping men be the men they're capable of becoming, right? When I'm reading a book, even if it's a fictional work, I'm looking at it through the lens of how does this apply to making me a better man, just because it's something I've poured everything into. So I look at it through that lens, and it's not a surprise that I find the answers I'm looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't help but think the importance of vision, something that it's related to the document you just read that was clear on my mind. Literally just yesterday, I was thinking about this is, why is that so important? When we do our battle plans, why is vision so critical to establishing goals and living a productive life? And I think at the root of it is, and it comes back from that book that we're reading this month about. He mentions in that book at one point that to find happiness, one must have a sense of belonging, purpose, and something to look forward to. And I think that we create that, right? You've created that in the Order of Man, and in an Iron Council, where maybe men that didn't have their purpose defined we're able to come together and define it and create it, not just find it. I shouldn't even use that word, create that purpose, and have something to look forward to and have a mission. And it's just so powerful when we are able to define who and how we show up in life.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I'm just writing some notes down here, but we were talking about the use of the word find, and I definitely like create better than find, but I like the word articulate even more than create, because create almost says like I'm just going to take it out of thin air and like create this thing. And how do you create?
Substance,
Right? And I'm not like, I get it. You know, I think we're on the same page. But the reason I like articulate, or maybe there's even a better word, is because to me it invokes thoughts of a sculptor, an amazing sculptor who's like working on this block of granite. I think it was Michelangelo who said, I didn't create David or whatever. Like, he was already there. It was my job to chisel the stone away to reveal him. Something along those lines. And that's what I feel like I'm doing on myself personally, even like physically, for example. You know, it's like, it's not about creation. It's about the pinnacle of masculinity that I personally can reach. And then how do I put pressure and stress on myself and challenge in a way that reveals who I'm meant to be, who I'm capable of becoming. It's already there. We just have to strip things away, refine, mold, craft, and then reveal who it is that we have the power to be.
I like that, because that plays into the concept of you having a divine nature, and works really well with those that are religious in regards to creation versus articulating, because it gives kind of respect to our creator that, you know, we didn't just create ourselves. Right.
Well, look, and to play the opposite side of that, and I'm religious, but let's say somebody's listening who's not. I still think there's value in doing it that way, because it gives us some sort of noble target to hit. Like, I could, for example, I believe that you can be an atheist and still be a good human being and still have a moral compass and still have goals and desires and ambitions. You know, I believe that. So even if you're not religious or spiritual in any nature, you still have objectives. And now you see this person, this man that you're striving to become, and you're chipping everything away and you're refining and you're molding and you're shaping. I don't necessarily think that is an exclusive to spirituality. It's just ambitious thought, you know? So it works from both ways, I think.
Yeah. And as a level of ownership to it, which of course, we enjoy here.
For sure. Well, and then also, I think you can look at, and this has been helpful for me, I think most people know the metaphor of two wolves. You know, you have the evil wolf and the good wolf inside of you, and then which one wins? The one you feed, right? We've all heard stories like that. Well, the same thing is true with the man that we have a capability of becoming and the man that we currently are. Like, I'm not at the pinnacle of my achievement, right? So when I'm about to engage in an activity, whatever that activity may be, I need to ask myself, what would the ideal version of myself do? This is called conscious thought. We can project ourselves out into a future date, one that does not exist yet, and look at what that individual would do, and then come back into reality and say, oh, okay, that person would make this decision. And then you make this decision, and then you start working towards that ideal version you have of yourself. It's just reverse engineering.
Yeah. Love it.
Can you hear my chair squeaking, by the way? Like, my chair is really squeaking here.
You need to stop.
I need to tighten that thing up. I'm animated, man. I got to move. And so, like, you know, I got to tighten that thing up today.
All right. ANG85. Do you and the family have a favorite television show that you are watching?
No.
All right.
I can't.
Next.
I don't.
Nothing?
No. No, my kids watch a show called Kicking It. And so they watch that, and they watch... okay, I'll take this back. There is one actually right now that we like. It's Lego Masters.
Lego Masters?
Yeah.
Is it people making Legos?
It is. It's a competition. There's like 9 teams or whatever, and they all compete. And I think the guy's name is Will Arnett. He's Batman and on the Lego movie. Yeah. Anyways, he's the host of it. And so, yeah, we love that show. Lego Masters. It's awesome.
You and Legos, man.
I love it, man. We all love it. I got the Batmobile sitting right there.
I saw that.
The 1989 Batmobile. I got it for my birthday a couple of days ago. 3,300 pieces, and it is amazing. I stayed up till 2 o'clock the other night fixing it. I was just building it, and my wife's like, hey, like, I'm going to go get it ready for bed. I'm like, cool, yeah, just come down when you're ready. And I kept building, and she's like, hey, I'm going to go read. I'm like, yeah, cool, I'll be up there in a minute. And then she comes down. She's like, hey, I'm going to go to bed. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll be there really shortly. And then I finish it, and I'm like, oh, it's 2 o'clock. Holy cow.
She comes down. I'm going to the grocery store.
Yep, that's right. You call me up. You're like, hey, I'm on the Zoom meeting. Like, are you going to join me for the recording today?
You're like, 5 more blocks. Just
That's
give
right.
me 5 more
I'm
blocks.
almost done. So that's our favorite show right now.
Duke Cannons. Can America be saved from the rot that's deep within our government?
Not in its current form. No, I didn't always used to believe that. I'm like, no, there's still good people and we can save this. And I believe that that's the case. There are good people and we can save this country, but I don't believe in its current form that we can. It's a very scary thing to actually consider and think about. But the politicians that we've elected, that we continue to elect,
That we continue is key.
yeah, their grasp for power and their greed and corruption and just filthy. I don't even know how to describe it. It's horrendous behavior. And I think there are a few who do value the American way of life, who are working to try to reclaim and restore a lot of that. But it's also indicative of who we are as a society, which is the sad thing.
A reflection of us.
That's exactly what it is. Most people don't care about politics. Most people are greedy and power hungry themselves. Most people would gladly step on others in order to prop themselves up. They'll lie, they'll cheat, they'll steal. Look, we all have the capacity for doing those things, but the idea is that you work against that, right? That you work against the natural man, that you strive to overcome the lesser, weaker, more pathetic version of yourself, like we were talking about earlier, and reveal the person you have an opportunity to become. But most people aren't about that. They're victims. They like to be victims because they get the attention. They focus on behaviors and activities and vices that don't serve them and put other people down. And so we get exactly what we deserve, unfortunately. And we're going to reap the benefits of this, and the consequences, I should say, not benefits, the consequences of this. And it's a very sad time in the country right now. So, rather than focusing on that, like, what do we do to fix it? Everything that I've been talking about for 5 years, it's ourselves, right? It's ourselves as men. We fix ourselves. We correct our behavior. We start to live by a moral compass. We attempt as best we can to bridge the gap between what we know we should be doing and what we're actually doing. We live with honor and class and integrity. We strive to serve other individuals. We light ourselves on fire, to our reference earlier, and allow others to be influenced by what it is we're doing. And then we demand accountability and excellence from the people that we have chosen to represent us. And if they can't do that, then we oust those individuals and we pick new representatives who are better and representatives of who we are and what we believe. But you can't do that if you're not willing to fix yourself and start working on yourself. I'm actually in the process of writing the outline and part of my next book, which will talk a lot about that and how we restore ourselves, restore honor and class and dignity and respect into society, and then ultimately take charge of our own lives and our families and communities and everybody that we want to help.
And I think at the root of that is stop lowering our standards.
Yeah.
Our expectations on things. It's funny how you use the word politics, how often we associate lying as, well, that's just politics. Like,
right.
That's acceptable.
Right.
Oh, it's just politics, or it's just news. It's just marketing. Okay, so it's now okay to be dishonest.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, that's not acceptable.
Right.
It shouldn't be acceptable in our homes. It shouldn't be acceptable with the circle of men in which we rub shoulders with. It shouldn't be acceptable in politics. It shouldn't be acceptable in our work, period.
Yep. Which means that you're going to need to step up. because those who aren't doing a good job. So you're going to need to step up. You know, it was interesting you used the word rot. I was standing on my deck here just a couple of days ago, and all the snow is melted, and all that's left is wood that is unfinished. Right? There's nothing on it at all. It's all been stripped away and worn away from the weather. And on certain ends of the 2x6s that make up the deck, it's all rotted where the screws are. Well, how do you fix the deck? Do you just like paint over the rot? So some people actually might, but that's not actually how you do it.
Not ideal.
Right. You actually take those planks and you rip them out and you destroy them. You burn them. You get rid of them, right? You let them go back to where they came from. And then you put new planks in. And then, only then, do you finish the deck once all the old planks have been fixed and ripped out and new ones have replaced those things. Then do you finish it up. Because right now we're trying to like finish things, and it's at our core foundation, the rot is there and it's prevalent. And unless we strip away that rot, no amount of finish is actually going to make this thing any better. It might disguise it, it might mask it for a little while, but if you start looking up close, you know, it's going to be there. And then what happens is one of my kids is walking on that deck one day, and because I didn't address the rot, it cracks, breaks, they fall through and end up hurting themselves. Right? That's what we're experiencing right now. We need to rip away that rot and replace it with something that's good and strong and has integrity. And then we can finish it. Then we can worry about the other little details.
And I think as I evaluate my life, and I'm sure a lot of us just look at how we do things, far too often we're painting that deck. Far too often we're shoving it's smoke and mirrors, right? We're acting like we have our shit together. We're, you know, doing a half-assed job. We're not really truly having integrity in regards to how we do things.
Right.
You know, it's the classic, you know, you evaluate the typical corporate America and how many productive hours an employee actually works.
Right.
Seldom is it 8 hours.
Yeah.
And that's acceptable, right?
We have lowered our standards. Yeah. Well, and look, here's the other thing is we accept that lower standard in others because we aren't willing to call them out because we know we might expose ourselves.
And we might get called out.
Right. And that's the problem. Every successful individual that I know, and I've met some very, very successful individuals over the past 5 years. One that stands out to me right off the bat is Andy Frisilla. Andy's grown to be a friend, but even outside of that friendship, he's somebody that holds people to task. Like he holds them to a very, very high standard. That's intimidating to a lot of people, but it's actually good to a lot of other people who want to grow and expand. But when I met Andy, he wasn't roughly 4 years ago, he wasn't the same individual that he is today. And he knew it. And he knew that he was out of integrity. And when I first met him, we talked a lot about how he's going to improve and get his fitness in check. And like he runs a fitness organization and he's overweight and like it's out of integrity. And he's completely reinvented himself over a period of 4 years, which gives him the authority and credibility to talk to other people like that.
Yeah.
You can't talk to people and ask them to do something that you're not doing yourself. You can fool them for a little while, especially if you're good and manipulative. You can fool them for a little while. But that's not sustainable. If you want to hold people to a high standard, like here, let me say it this way. You cannot hold people to a higher standard than you hold yourself to. It's just not possible. So if you want the best out of your children, you better be giving the best. If you want the best out of your wife, you better be giving the best. You want the best out of your employees and clients and everybody else that you interact with, just understand it can only go as high as the standard you hold yourself to.
Yeah. And it's very easy to reflect on our lives and see how that correlates.
Well, it's easy to see if you're willing to look at it. Most people aren't willing to look at it.
Yeah. All right. William Nett, tips you have for a newlywed couple in terms of saving for housing, kids, and becoming financially stable.
Do it. Save. One little tip I would suggest, because I'm assuming you're renting right now, is let's say, and I'm just going to throw out some arbitrary numbers here. Let's just say your rent is $1,000 a month. I know if you're in California, you're like, what? Where do I live? In a tent out under the highway?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Or that's where you do live.
if you live in Maine, then you're like, oh, that's a nice little place that you got there, right? So let's just say that that's the number. All right. You guys get it. That's $1,000 a month. Now you go look and you say, okay, well, we're gonna buy a 200 or a 300 or a $400,000 house, whatever. It depends on where you live and your financial situation. And let's say that your mortgage is going to be $1,800. And when I say mortgage, I'm talking about principal, interest, taxes, and insurance.
All of it.
All of it, not just principal and interest. Principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. $1,800. Okay, so there's an $800 discrepancy per month. So that means that you need to save in a side fund $800 every month. It needs to be put into a side fund that you don't access. And I can't tell you how often I've heard people say, oh, well, we can't do that. Well, what the hell makes you think you can buy a house then?
You shouldn't buy the house, yeah.
You can't afford the house. Like, if you can't afford the difference right now and put it in a separate fund, then you can't afford the house. Don't be a moron. It's not difficult. It's math. There's no emotion in math. It's numbers. It's little squiggly lines that mean something, and it's not based on emotion. And yet when we start talking about this little green piece of paper called money, we all get emotional and do some real stupid things. So do a little research. What are the average price points that you're looking at for your house? Then get on a mortgage calculator. I think Bankrate has a good one. I mean, just Google it. You'll find one. Mortgage calculator, 15, 20, 30-year loan. Here's the mortgage, principal and interest. Add an additional 20%. That's the taxes and insurance. Okay, it's $1,800. Take the difference from what you're paying now. Set that aside every single month. If you can do that for 6-7 months, okay, you probably can afford that place. If you can't do that at all, then no, you can't afford that place at the moment. So gain a new skill, get a promotion, take on a new job, work a few more hours, have her go to work, like whatever you can do to start raising your income. I mean, in addition to that, you're just going to make sure that you're tracking your income and expenses. I guarantee that if you start tracking, you'll start to work out a lot more discretionary income than you think you have, because you'll realize you're spending an extra $200, $300, $400 at the convenience store and McDonald's and all these little ticky-tacky things that you don't need, but you won't be able to identify that unless you're actually tracking it on a weekly basis, not monthly, weekly. Here's my income, here's my expenses, here's where it went, here's where we lost money, here's what we weren't aware of, and you start to identify that. And now that you're aware of it, you can start saving, investing it, and using it in a more prudent manner.
Cool. Erez Kig, advice for a 20-year-old college student.
Get done with school as quickly as you possibly can. Like, just take it to the extreme. Look,
get an extra degree, maybe a few masters. Take your time. Just keep rolling that in, deferring your student loans.
That's right. We'll say it this way. I'm bearish on college education. All right.
Yeah.
If you need a college degree because you need it to pursue the career that you're after, then by all means, go do that. Do it with as little debt as possible. Work a job, get grants, not loans, grants. I understand loans too, but I'm saying if you can get grants first, get a job. Like, I don't want you to come out of school with a bunch of debt. Okay. So if you have to do that, you have to do that. I get it. If you're just going because like it could be fun or maybe it'll be a good experience,
I'm not sure what I'm going to do, so I'm just going to get this degree. Yeah.
Then get serious. If you don't know what you're going to do, then like get serious. Hey, this is what I want to do. And then and only then should you pursue that course of action. The college to me isn't a place to hang out. And too many people think that. And I'll have people from this podcast, they'll say, well, you build a network and you build discipline and yada, 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 yada. I could do that 1,000 other places that are going to be much more effective, much more efficient, and much more profitable, frankly, because I'll be working and earning money rather than spending money. College, in a lot of ways, is a big scam. I'm not saying it isn't necessary. I'm not saying that anybody who went to college is an idiot. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying you better be very, very careful of the fire that you're playing with, because fire can certainly be a benefit, and it can burn and destroy along the way. So don't waste your time. Be hyper intentional about what it is you're doing. So you're making good decisions, prudent decisions, and you're actually moving the needle rather than just kicking the tires and hanging out.
Yeah. I am Danny Boy. What do you think about the current state of the world and all these events in relationship to Bible and biblical prophecy?
I don't think I'm willing to go there yet. Because, I mean, look, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, there's biblical prophecy, and I don't know if there's something specifically that you're talking about. And there's a bunch of things like, oh, it's the end of the times and end of the world, and here's all the things that are coming to fruition and coming true, and there's wars and disease and famine and all this other stuff, and that's certainly true. But I don't know. I think that we just need to do right. We need to live right. We need to be healthy. We need to serve ourselves and serve our families and do what we can, elect the right leaders, hold them to task and account. But I'm not quite there yet as far as, is this the end of the world? And frankly, I don't know.
Yeah. Use it as a good learning experience regardless, right?
Well, it doesn't matter if it is or isn't, right? It actually doesn't matter. Like, the only reason it would matter is because you think it's going to be the end of the world is coming, in the 24 hours. And then of course that's going to probably dictate a lot of your life. Like, where do you need to repent? And
which you should do right now anyway.
And do you need to delete your internet browser kind of thing, like if you're going to die type thing. And to your point though, Kip, is like, you should be living that life anyways, right? You should be doing the right things anyways. And regardless of what happens, you're prepared, just be prepared. To meet your maker or to live another day. Just be prepared.
Because there is no guarantee that you're not going to meet your maker tomorrow anyway.
Well, one of those things is going to happen. You're either going to die or you're not. So be prepared. Pretty sure that's what's going to happen.
All right, Michael Kropp. For those who are not working, aren't used to working from home and used to used to having physical separation, what advice would you give for those staying positive and productive despite the current situations?
I always say, make yourself the project. That's what you need to do. Yeah. Make yourself the project. For me, I'm getting a little stir crazy around here at times because I'm not going out, meeting and going to lunch and doing the things or training jujitsu, like doing the things that are a good outlet for me, right?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, the house looks awesome because I haven't been sitting around doing a bunch of shit that doesn't help me or anybody else improve. So we put new flooring in the front patio. We put in new blinds in the entire house. We cleaned out the entire attic. I remodeled the entire office. The only thing I have left, and you can see it up here, is the trim up the top and on the floor, but everything else is completely remodeled. I just wrote that document that I shared with you a little bit of earlier. I'm writing that document. I'm building an achievement and advancing initiative for the Iron Council. I decided that I was going to do 75 hard, so I'm working out twice a day now and drinking a bunch more water than I'm used to, which is the hardest part of it, is drinking that much water. So yeah, stay busy, engage your mind, engage your back, engage your hands, and get to work. Like, there's plenty to do. Just find something to do. Be productive. Don't watch that tiger movie. Like, every time you want to sit down and you want to watch it.
I don't even understand what people are talking about.
Don't watch it.
This tiger something. And
right. Don't watch it. I've seen an episode and I'm like, this is stupid. I shouldn't even watch that episode. I feel like I never will get that hour or whatever back of my life. Don't watch it. Like, do something. Read a book, play the guitar, lift weights, whatever. Do something that's way more productive than just sitting around doing nothing, stuffing your face full of crap.
And there's so much of the stuff that we can do now that we procrastinate and never do because we don't have time for or whatever. It's like, well, now's the perfect time. Now's the perfect time to practice the guitar because, that wasn't a priority. Well, guess what? You don't have jujitsu anymore. So
So do something else. I've over the past 4 weeks, I've been so much more productive in my life than I've ever been, ever. And everything's improving. My relationships are improving. Of course, the family dynamic is improving. The business, I was looking at income and the trajectory. It's gone up over the past 5 weeks, and it will continue to go up over the next 5 weeks. My weight is going down, body fat percentage is going down, strength is going up. And I don't say this to brag. I'm just saying, I'm more focused than I've ever been. I don't have to say no to anything anymore because they're just not there, right? People aren't inviting people to go do things and help them move. And it's like, I don't have to say no to anything. That's a beautiful thing. Now I can take all that time and commit it towards improving myself and my immediate circle, which frankly is my family. That's it.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice, actually.
All right. Yeah.
You'd rather have names, wouldn't you?
I know. This is really hard. Although some of it's kind of funny, but what is one thing you wish you would have learned in your 20s? We get this question from time to time.
Yeah, and I still don't like it.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you feel like you need to learn? Learn that. I don't understand where this question comes from. Like, help me understand the context of this question. I don't think I've ever asked, like, hey, what should I have learned 5 years ago?
Yeah,
I don't know. Like,
I think
what?
it's the hijack. It's the idea that, like, oh, wait, if Ryan, knowing what he knows now, and looked back at his life and said, I should have learned this, then if I learn that, then I'll even be like even better off.
I mean, there's 1,000 things. Like, I wish I knew everything. I wish I was God of the universe 5 years ago. Like, that's like technically the answer, but you can't know that. Yeah. Look, I'm trying to be understanding of the question. Like, what are a couple lessons that I think you should know? You know, again, it depends. Like, here's one, and I answered this earlier. Is like, ask a better question. Like, I wish 10 years ago I would have learned to ask better questions. And a better question is hyper specific. So if you're like, what do you think I should know? I have no idea. But if you said, hey, I'm starting a business and I'm trying to grow my email list and I don't have people converting, like, what 3 things should I know? Awesome question. Very specific. You know what you want. You're giving me some instruction on what it is I can do to maybe help you, or maybe I can't and I have to direct you somewhere else. Yeah. That's a more powerful question. So what I would say to answer this is, one thing I wish I knew 5 years ago is how to ask powerful questions. And a powerful question means that you have to put some effort into it. Like you can't, if you just ask a question like that, you're like passing the buck. A better way is saying, okay, well, like, what do I want to learn? Okay, I want to learn about starting a business, or I want to learn about losing weight. I want to learn about nutrition. I want to learn about how to connect with women. Like, what is it specifically that you want? And then you ask that question from people who have those results. And that's where you're going to start to see the results for yourself and get better answers. Because right now, if I just said, oh, you should learn to be a pilot. That's one thing I wish I would have learned 5 years ago.
That may not be what you need to focus on.
It's like, I don't know. So I'm not trying to beat you up too bad on this. I'm just saying, like, 5 years ago, I wish I would have known how to ask better questions that were hyper-focused so that I could get the exact results and answers that I was looking for. It would have been a much more effective way to go about my life. And by the way, any mentor will tell you that. Because a lot of people say, well, like, how do I find a mentor? What are you looking for? Well, I want okay, good. Now you narrowed it down and you can start looking in the right path.
Yeah. Well, and I'll pull Mickler. Sometimes the things that we wanted to learn when we were 20, we weren't capable of learning.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
True.
The thing I look at, if I think about 20, what I wish would probably be better self-awareness. And some of that has to actually, like, literally has to do with physical brain development. So
yeah,
who
true.
knows how well I could have pulled that off at age 20? Probably not very well.
Yeah, I agree. I just say, what do you want to learn? What result do you want to produce? That's what you need to learn.
Yeah. All right, Flying Bluntsman. If anything, what are you working on towards while still in lockdown?
I talked a little bit about these. So doing 75 hard. So giving that the try on that. Doing the achievements and the advancement initiative inside of the Iron Council. These are different achievements that men will be able to unlock and then advance within the Iron Council itself. Working on the book, suggested that a little earlier. Obviously, kind of revisiting the mission and the purpose of the organization and the Order of Man. That will translate over into some changes on the website to make it more user-friendly and clean up the flow and clear up a message and the process and where guys can go for resources. And then also working on building out a more comprehensive offering of merchandise in our store. Like you have an Order of Man shirt on, an Order of Man hat. I have an Order of Man shirt on, Order of Man hat. So like I want to make sure that we have a more comprehensive offering of what's available there. Cool. So we got a new hat coming out here soon too, called the Watchman. It's awesome.
The Watchman. Like
That's right.
It. All right. Joe Dunham, what are 2 favorite podcasts you listen to currently when you're not recording your own?
Um, Well, let me pull up my phone here and I'll tell you because there's quite a few of them.
Two favorites.
Two favorites I got
You
to
said
pick.
two.
Okay.
I don't know. Do you want
Fine,
to
I'll
limit
pick
it
two.
down to two? You're gonna.
I'll give you two. I like Ben Shapiro and
He's so smart.
he's amazing. London Real. Those are the two I'd give you right now.
Copy.
Other ones? Should I give some bonuses here though? Or?
Yeah, give some bonuses.
All right. Art of Manliness is good. This one with Dan Crenshaw, Hold These Truths, is pretty interesting. Jordan Harbinger show is good. What else? I've got a lot in here. Cleared Hot, Andy Stumpf is good. Jordan B. Peterson podcast.
Yeah.
Mic Drop. Real AF with Andy Frisilla. Team Never Quit. Jocko, Rogan, etc., etc.
There you go. All right. Terragus 20.
Let's take a couple more, by the way, Kit.
Okay. Terragus 20. Are there any worthwhile Order of Women style blogs and sites? I enjoy and appreciate Order of Man philosophy, and I wish that there was a similar supportive community for women regarding true femininity and our roles.
I don't know. I really don't. I get this question quite a bit. This sounds like a woman is asking this question.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
So.
Yeah, I actually get a lot from men because they want to know where they could go for their wife, and I don't know. I don't really know what's out there. Obviously, I'm not like immersed in that world. So, if you have any suggestions or recommendations, then let me know because people ask the question, and I just don't know, and I don't spend time researching it because it's not in the wheelhouse of the things that we're doing. So, if you have recommendations, let me know. I'm all ears.
Cool. Leon Johnson from Texas or Texas. When does the Scout make its comeback?
The Scout hat?
Well.
Oh, no. Sorry. He's talking about my truck. Yeah. I was like, the what now?
Is the Scout not for selling on the hat anymore?
No, it's there. We were just out of stock, and so we just restocked 2 days ago.
If it's the hat, it's coming.
It's there.
It's back.
It's there.
If it's the truck.
Probably within the next week we'll bust it out because the snow's all gone. It's pretty soggy out in the field right now, so if I took it out of the thing, I might get swamped in the river that I have to cross in order to get it to where we want it. So probably in the next week or week and a half, I'd say it'll be out.
That's funny.
Out rolling around, cruising the streets of Maine.
All right, Voldman, how do you feel about your shorter beard?
I'm actually thinking about going shorter.
Oh,
I don't know. I haven't decided. I like the shorter beard better than the longer beard, though. Actually, it doesn't get in the way. It's easier to maintain. It just looks better. So I don't mind it.
All right. The only DJ David. I have a son due in 2 months. Best advice.
Continue to take care of yourself. Like all the other advice you'll get, like love him, train him, you'll get all that stuff. But what you won't hear a lot is continue to take care of yourself. And that is where most men fail. Like just the fact that you're asking the question says you're probably going to be a relatively good dad. You're going to mess some things up because you're a dad. And that's what we do. But you're going to get a lot of things right because you're intentional about it. You want to be a good dad. So like changing the diapers and feeding him and being patient and all this other stuff that you can hear from everybody else. You're going to do that by default because you're a dad. But what a lot of men do is they forsake all their friends, they let go of all their hobbies and their activities and their interests, and they stop taking care of themselves. And it's noble because you're focused now on your kid and your wife and everything else. But if you don't take care of yourself, you're going to burn up and burn out, and you're going to produce a less than favorable result. And I'm just telling you, I'm going to be so bold as to say it's very likely that if you don't take care of yourself, that you're just destined to walk the path of divorce and or single fatherhood. And I know that sounds like extreme, but I'm telling you, and I've seen it time in and time out, if you do not heed my warning of taking care of yourself, that is the path that you're walking. And it's very likely that it'll happen. Would you agree with that? I know that's like almost an alarmist way of looking at it. I'm just telling you, that is the path of divorce and single fatherhood.
You will become the man or a man that your wife doesn't want to be with and that your son or daughter will not look up to.
That's a great way to, that's a very like grim way to look at it, but it's like the exact right way to look at it. I like that. I'm going to write that down, man. No, that's really good. So you're going to become the man your wife doesn't want to be with and the father that your son or daughter doesn't look up to.
Yeah.
That's powerful. There it is.
There it is.
I'm stealing that. By Ryan Mickler. Just kidding.
By Ryan Mickler. To follow Ryan Mickler and to read his new quote,
yeah.
Follow him on
I'm going to put
Twitter
that in my new
Instagram.
book.
And I'm assuming this may happen again. So if you guys want to obviously follow Ryan, get in contact with him and maybe a future submission of questions to the AMA, that's at Ryan Mickler, Michler. We talked about this, and a lot of these questions today are just about becoming better, right? How do I become an intentional father for my new son? How do I take advantage of my time of isolation? Well, you get on the court of life and you play the game and you become better and you find men to hold you accountable. That's another topic on today's discussions was accountability and what that looks like. And you use the example of Andy Frisella and holding people accountable is tough. That's one of the things I love about the Iron Council. Mm-hmm. It is a playground. If you're a passive individual that doesn't feel comfortable communicating and you do not like to be held accountable, join us in the Iron Council and then ask your team to hold you accountable. Right. And communicate like you normally don't communicate and speak up when you normally don't speak up.
Yeah, because Kip, I can say one thing on there is like, it is possible to hide out in the Iron Council.
It is.
So like we've created this framework, but I've seen a lot of guys like hiding out because there's a lot of guys in there, right?
Yeah.
Look, we've created the framework, but you've got to do the work. You've got to put forth the effort. So if you have those little butterflies in your stomach about not sharing and not opening up and you don't want anybody to take you to task, then that's probably exactly what you need. So don't let yourself hide and be passive.
Totally. And we have this environment by where you could do that. And what's the consequence? Some dudes online that don't even know you might judge you. At least try it out here, right? And join us in the Iron Council and figure it out and learn in this playground. So then that way you can implement those kind of ways of being in your family, at work, and in other areas in your community. So join us or learn more at orderofman.com/Iron Council. And of course, you can join us on our Facebook group. That's facebook.com/group/orderofman. And the Order of Man store is restocked with some items. To find out what those items are, go to store.orderofman.com.
That's it, man. Well done.
Done.
All right, guys. Appreciate you. Glad you're in the battle. Just make sure to connect with us. We got a lot of good information and some new initiatives coming out, including the book that I'll start talking about a little bit more as we get closer. But really glad that you're on the path with us. We need more men in this fight, and honored you're in it with us. So we'll let you get going. We'll be back on Friday for the Friday Field Notes. But until then, go out there, take action, become the man you are meant to be.